All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is why all of you are here. This is why all of you tuned in. And for those of you that might be watching this on YouTube later, why aren't you in the stream? It's always better when you just watch it live. But anyways, we have Fractures in Time. It's the official patch 10.15 development preview. I will start right off the bat. This is not a first go through or a first look. I did look at this before I went live. Why? Because literally everyone was DMing me going, bro, you have to see this. You have to see this. This is massive. This is massive. What's going on? So obviously I had to see it. And then I saw it and I went, damn, this is kind of big. I guess we should be talking about this. Can I start by saying, Blizzard, on behalf of all players, thank you so much for this new way of communicating with the player base. This just constant speaking to the player base. There's almost not a single week that passes by where you're not talking to the player base about either things that may be going wrong, things that you're looking at, admitting when you've made mistakes and maybe you have to pivot a little bit and there's a little bit more there, and just generally speaking, responding to player feedback at an unprecedented rate. I want to say thank you on behalf of all World of Warcraft players. But all right, so let's get into this. First and foremost, while adventurers breach Naltharian secret laboratory in Aberys, almost said laboratory, like I'm watching Dexter or I am Dexter, the Shadowed Crucible, the next content update, is making its way onto the PTR, including a whole new specialization for Drakthir Evokers, a new mega dungeon, Dawn of the Infinite, and much, much more. We're going to be going through all of that in this video. The new Evoker specialization, Augmentation. Now, I feel like since this is a lore channel, it would be prudent for me to go through the lore. For those of you that don't know, I made a video on this like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, I think at this point. The reason the Drakthir don't have a third spec within the lore was right before they were placed in stasis. The Oathbinder, the hand that Naltharian had that controlled the Drakthir broke. And as a result of this, Naltharian feared that he would lose control of the Drakthir. While they were in stasis, Naltharian directed Adamanthia, one of his generals or his sister. They don't quite explain exactly how Naltharian and her were related. We know that she's a black dragon. He directed Adamanthia to extract all of the black dragon essence from the Drakthir. The black dragon essence was originally meant to be augmenting. Now, Blizzard says Emberthal and Abyssinian are working together to release the black Dragonflight essence that had been siphoned from the Drakthir during their long stasis, unlocking memories and powers forgotten to them. This speaks to what Emberthal went through in 10.07, where she basically said, everyone else is looking for answers here, but I won't find my answers here. Because she knew that she had lost something, but she didn't know what she had lost because those memories were already taken from her. It's going to be that quest line to unlock augmentation is going to be super interesting because the Drakthir know things. They've seen things, but they can't remember those things. So now with the essence being replanted, there's a chance that they could remember everything. It's going to be very interesting. But okay, let's first look at Emberthal and Abyssinian working together, the results of their efforts. So here we have it. A third spec being added to all Evokers. Augmentation is a new damage dealer role with a twist. They use the essence of the Black and Bronze Dragonflights to amplify the abilities of nearby allies. The playstyle for this new specialization involves empowering your allies with a variety of beneficial effects. Some can be cast directly on your allies, while others are tied to using your damage dealing abilities effectively. Augmentation evokers deliver their damage in a wholly unique way. They act as force multipliers, increasing their group's capabilities and damage output significantly. This is massive. not only for Evokers, because obviously for Evokers this is really cool, but we have said for a long time, why aren't there any support classes in World of Warcraft? There are so many games out there that have these full-fledged support classes, and people love playing those support classes. Look, it's not going to be something that everyone is going to play. I fully accept that. For some people, that hero's journey of being the tank is very important. For other people, the hero's journey of being the healer or the DPS is super important. It's almost integral to their ability to actually roleplay their characters effectively. But there are players, and granted, I don't think it's going to be that many players, but it doesn't matter because there are players that do prefer a more support-based playstyle. And the fact that Blizzard is adding this, I think is going to open a lot more doors for people to actually start raiding and doing dungeons, purely because they now have that fantasy to fulfill. The fact that I'm not a pure healer, I am a damage dealer. But my damage really comes from enabling everyone else to do damage. And before you're thinking to yourself, but Akulon, this is going to be a nightmare, no one's going to want to play it because of DPS logs and stuff like that, Augmentation Evokers offers a unique opportunity to delve into a playstyle never seen before in World of Warcraft. While we're still working on some aspects of this new paradigm, like introducing some new combat log hooks so that add-ons and community websites can effectively measure your performance, for example, we hope you've enjoyed this early look at it. We'll see you in the Dragon Isle. So Blizzard have already identified the current meta, because let's be fair, DPS meters is a thing in World of Warcraft and many players look at it. The problem with adding any sort of bard spec or support spec to World of Warcraft is who's going to play it when they're going to be bottom of the DPS log and everyone else is going to be like, oh my god, you're bottom of the DPS log, bring a proper class, please. We don't want to take someone that is bottom. That would always be a problem, and that would always stop people from being able to play the class. Now, with Blizzard updating that, I think it opens the door for future support classes to be added. We may actually see a bard class being added to the game, or maybe not even a bard class. If you think about the different classes that we already have in World of Warcraft, there are many of them that can already have a like a support spec built into it. Warlocks, for example, come to mind, where Warlocks it was one of the original support classes in World of Warcraft. They had a ton of buffs and things for the rest of the group that wasn't really for them, but it allowed the rest of the group to do a shit ton of damage by using the foul to empower their allies. And that is something that Warlocks do relatively consistently, at least within the lore. The possibilities are truly endless when it comes to the amount of classes in the game that can have some kind of support spec within it. So let's go back up here and let's just quickly check, right? So augmentations do damage with a twist, augmenting allies. Certain augmentation abilities, see some examples below, buff either your whole party or specific members. Many of these have smart or proximity-based automatic targeting, enabling you to maintain focus on the battlefield and enemy selection. You will still be able to target specific party members if you desire. However, there is plenty of freedom to bolster your allies as you see fit. This entire line suggests to me easy to get into, very difficult to master, which is usually the classes that I like the most. So in other words, if you just use the smart options and the proximity options, you're going to be just fine. But if you really want to be god tier, you're going to have to learn how to target your party members, specific party members with specific spells, and also to keep specific people out of danger, put them into danger if they need to be there. All in all, I just think really, really cool. This spell effect really does look boss mode. Just FYI. The power of black and bronze. These sample abilities of augmentation should give you an idea of what each aspect of magic brings to the table. Black Dragonflight magic focuses on raw power increases and forceful outbursts of earthen might. Bronze Dragonflight magic is all about bending time, changing fate and shifting timelines to tremendous effect. I want to see this. Ebon Might. Increase your 4 nearest allies' primary stat by a percentage of your own and causes your eruption to deal more damage for 10 seconds. Kind of nice. You increase their damage and that in turn increases your damage, which is quite nice. Eruption. Causes a violent eruption beneath an enemy's feet, dealing volcanic damage. Split between them and nearby enemies. Increases the duration of your active Ebon Might effects. Upheaval. Gather earth and power beneath your enemy's feet and send them hurtling upwards, dealing volcanic damage to them and nearby enemies. Empowering. Expands the area of effect, increases the duration of your active Ebon Might effect. Breath of the Eons. Fly to the target location, exposing temporal wounds on enemies in your path for 10 seconds. Temporal wounds accumulate a portion of damage dealt by your allies, and then critically strike the enemy for that amount at the end of the duration. Increases the duration of your... Bro. This is actually really cool. We have the talent tree here. Sadly, not much yet within the talent tree. I just want to see if there's some of the bronze ones. Learn to attune yourself to the essence of the black of bronze. Black attunement grants you and your 4 nearest allies increased maximum health, and bronze attunements grant you and your 4 nearest allies increased movement speed. Blistering Scales protect an ally with explosive dragon scales, increases their armor by a percentage of your own. Melee attacks against them cause a scale to explode, dealing volcanic damage. So kind of like thorns in this one, right? And then bestow Wernstone. Conjure a pair of Wernstones, one for your target ally and one for yourself. A Wernstone can be activated by the bearer to transport them to the other Wernstone's location if they are within 100 yards. This is kind of going to mean if you're a really good evoker, you give one of those Wernstones to a tank, and you obviously have the other one, and your tank, if you position yourself correctly, will be able to teleport across the battlefield to maybe pick up some enemies. In Mythic Plus, I can see people really cheesing the shit out of things with this ability. So ultimately, I think really, really good change, and I'm very excited for it. The main thing that I want to talk about here that I think just signifies such a massive shift in World of Warcraft's way of doing things. This is the first time ever where a new expansion feature is added in the middle of the expansion. You know, for the longest time, we have known that if there's a new class that's going to be added, it's going to be at the beginning of the expansion. When anything massively new is going to be added, it's going to be at the beginning of the expansion. Suddenly, Blizzard is sort of, with the Dragonflight, really up until now, there's so many things that Blizzard have done where you look at what Blizzard is doing and you go, they're just changing all the fucking rules. Like, everything is just changing. They're just going, oh, this is not a new expansion, but never mind. We'll just give you things. It's fine. It's fine. We're just going to give you really cool things because we think it's really cool now. What's even more, this is the first time ever that we're seeing gameplay follow storyline. Let me expand on this. If you look at the beginning of World of Warcraft Dragonflight, there has always been room for a 3rd Evoker spec. The lore showed that there is room for a 3rd Evoker spec. Yet, there was no 3rd Evoker spec. Then you go to 10.07, and suddenly there are very strong suggestions that something Naltharion did removed the ability for a 3rd Evoker spec to be playable at the moment. Again, part of the story, part of the lore, not part of gameplay. And now Blizzard says, well, here's your 3rd Evoker spec, because the story demands it. We want to explore this Black Dragon essence. We want to explore the story of the Drakthir. This means this needs to happen now. Do I think this was a spur-of-the-moment decision? No, not at all. I think the 3rd Evoker spec was always going to be a thing. In the past, though, the way Blizzard would have handled it is release it at launch. There would be 3 specs, and then maybe players would sort of play through the story that explains where the spec comes from. For the first time ever, Blizzard is going, no. For the story to make sense, the Drakthir can only have 2 specs at launch. We'll add the 3rd spec when we get to the story bit of the 3rd spec, which I think really, really, really cool. Before we continue with the rest of this, what do you guys think about the 3rd Evoker spec? How do you feel? Are you excited for this? And how do you feel about the future implementations of a 3rd Evoker spec? What are your thoughts?